This video is going to be all about portable power stations. I'm going to go into what you need to know before purchasing one, what I've been using, and some of the pros and cons of going with electric over a gas generator. All right, let's get to it. First thing you're going to need to figure out is your wattage requirements. What are you trying to power? What is the peak wattage it's going to pull, and how much wattage it's going to use consistently? Most of these electric generators are basically listed as watt hours, so you want to make sure you get something that's big enough that's going to last you the amount of time that you need it, whether that's just an afternoon or a longer off-road adventure. Now, another important consideration is how much room you'll actually have to take the generator with you. A big thing for me is I wanted to be able to take it in something like a Wrangler, and I've got a full family of 4, so having something that's extra large isn't going to work, and having something that's gasoline power isn't an option. Now, one thing I've been using for quite some time is this EcoFlow Delta Mini. It's pretty compact, it's 882 watt hours, and if we're just going on trips where it's like a quick family trip or a day trip to the beach, this thing works really well. It fits very nicely between the seats back here in a Wrangler. Same thing with a Gladiator. It does have 2 handles on the side that you can easily strap it down, so you don't have to worry about it coming loose. So a lot of it's going to depend on how much room you're willing to dedicate to a power system. If you are unsure of just how much power you might need or want the ability to easily expand your power options, I recommend taking a look at the same setup I went with from EcoFlow. This is the Delta 2, and it has a 1024 watt hour capacity and is capable of putting out 2200 watts with X-Boost activated. The LFP batteries have a life expectancy of 3000 cycles at up to 80% capacity. Using the AC cord, I can typically get it juiced back up to 100% from around 20% in under an hour. This unit has 3 12-volt plugs, 6 AC outlets out back, 2 USB-A and 2 USB-C ports up front, along with an additional 2 USB-A fast charge ports. 2 main draws for me for this particular setup was the fact that it's fairly compact and it's expandable. Hooking up a second battery doubles my watt hours. For me, powering a cooler, camera gear, and RC cars, I can get around 4 days with both set up before I need to recharge. Aside from being able to charge this setup quickly with the AC cord, I can also power it back up via a 12-volt charger or using a solar panel. However, both of these methods are considerably slower compared to going with AC. A great feature I use often, especially when it's tucked up far in my MITS alloy canopy bed, is the EcoFlow app. This allows me to monitor the unit and turn off and on different settings. Let's talk about price, because I know that's going to be a big deal here, and I want to put some perspective. This lower unit alone is $999. If you want to expand it like I did to another 1000 watt hour battery, you're going to spend another $799. Now, if you need the extra power, it's a pretty decent investment. If you want to compare this to like a Redarc system, it's actually cheaper and it's portable, depending on which level of Redarc you went with. I mentioned Redarc because if you're familiar with the channel, you know I have a Jeep Gladiator with a MITS alloy bed setup on it, and Redarc is something they highly recommend when you're doing a more serious overlanding or touring setup for their canopies. For me, having something that was going to be fixed with just that canopy and that level of investment didn't make sense. I have multiple vehicles. I'd sort of had multiple uses for what I wanted to do. So investing in a standalone power system for just that vehicle, I didn't want to do it. Now, compared to a gasoline generator, these things are definitely more expensive, but you have to look at what you're doing. I know in some places you can't even have gasoline generators, and so this is going to be your only option. And if you're like me and you need a generator in the back of your Jeep, you're not going to be carrying around a gas-powered Honda. So that's ultimately why I went with something like this. So let's talk about what I actually use these for and how they've been working. Now, more so than not, I usually have a cooler plugged into the Delta 2, whether it's my ARB or the one from Rough Country. I like these fridge freezers. They give me a lot of room. I have 2 small children that are usually on the off-road trip with me. If my wife is there too, we've got these things absolutely packed. So if we're going on an off-road journey, I'll typically get the cooler cold the night before, plug it into an AC outlet, then I will strap it down in the back of one of the Jeeps and use the Delta setup to keep everything going. And that's usually going to be between 3 and 4 days. Realistically, by the time you put the cooler in, let's say on a Friday, pick up the kids, go up to the mountains, spend 2 days off-roading, and then you're coming back, especially if it's a longer weekend, you got a few days of this thing just sitting in a Jeep. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a cooler setup and a battery setup where I didn't have to worry about it. Now, it's not just going to be powering the cooler on these trips, whether it be kids' iPads or RC cars or my camera gear. I'm tapping into these things for a number of different things. Now, my longest sort of time that I've had the cooler plugged in to the Delta 2 with the expandable battery pack has been 5 days, and I still had 24% remaining. So that's pretty impressive. The reason I have these dirt bikes right here, I want to mention that real quick. I've get some questions about, I'd mentioned charging the Sur-Ron battery before with the smaller one, and I couldn't do it all the way. I will tell you, charging a Sur-Ron battery from about 25%, I can fully get a Sur-Ron battery all the way back up to 100% using the Delta 2 with the expandable pack. So that is awesome. It still takes 3 hours because that's how long Sur-Ron batteries to take, at least the stock ones, take to recharge. It's really nice too. My daughter's got an electric dirt bike, so if I've got this thing just sitting in the back of the Gladiator, it's so small, it's easy to do that. It can be charging whether we're done riding or if I forgot to top it off on the way. It's really nice to have that. I love the fact that these things have so many points to tie them down. That is huge for me, and one of the things I want to talk about next is really durability of this overall setup. Now, in terms of case durability, these things have definitely gotten a little abused off-road. Not on purpose. I mean, I typically have these things strapped down, but sometimes I'll have a air compressor bag slide off and bang against it. I mean, it is what it is when you're going off-road. I learned with the Delta Mini that they're pretty durable. Like they can get, you know, kind of take a good hitting and not really having to worry about that. I've got small children, so if we set this thing up in the backyard for a projector or something, sometimes it gets hit and knocked over. And it's been very durable, and it is nice. That is a huge advantage over a gas power generator if you have small children. Like, nobody's getting burnt on this thing. The worst thing that it does is make noise from the fans, which they are not that loud. I would say I do wish there was some way to have this thing be a little bit more weather resistant. I'm always really worried about it getting wet. I've had them on the back of the Gladiator on the flatbed strapped down, and they weren't going anywhere, and it was fine to drive like that, but I was sweating it hard if it was going to rain. They have been covered in dust. I mean, thick dust from wheeling, especially with the half doors on, and I've just taken a brush, aired them, cleaned them, haven't had an issue there, no failure to speak of, so all of that's been great. So durability wise, I'm happy. I think the handles are really where it's at, because you can actually tie these things down, you can stack them and tie them, and they work really well. They can be jostled around with everything moving, and nothing gives me an error code or fails or anything like that. Now, are there any real complaints? And I would say my main complaint doesn't have anything to do with the Delta 2 itself, but the expandable battery. The fact is, you can only use the expandable battery with this Delta 2. So there's no plugs in it, there's no USB ports, there's no nothing. So basically all it's doing is feeding this guy. And for $800, I feel like it should have come with something else. If I could have expanded the other battery that I already had, that would have been better too. So it's tough if you're going to justify buying this and you need more expandable storage. It's still cheaper to get this for sure, but understand when you're not using it, there's no other like uses for it, you know, which I think is kind of a shame, missed opportunity, if you will. Now, if you live in a place like I do that gets hurricanes, it's also really nice to have something for backup power, and it makes the justification for these a little bit easier. So that's my 2 cents on the Delta 2 with expandable battery pack. If you've got questions about it, let me know. Overall, I think that if you're looking for off-road power and you need something that's going to last a while, especially with fridges, I think this is a really good unit. The fact that you can power, I think it's like 2200 watts for like a shorter amount of time. So if you need some serious power, maybe you need to bring some power tools to fix something, this is a really good option for that. The secondary batteries, in my opinion, very usable if you want to have that longevity and you're not going to be giving it any power off-road, but at the very least I think the Delta 2 is worth looking at if you just want a nice you know, few day weekender type setup. I think it's a pretty cool setup. So if you got any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you want to see more behind the scenes stuff, you can find me at Ali Mansour Editor on Instagram, and I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the trail. Take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the Driving Line channel. Our goal is to excite, entertain, and educate you on all things automotive. So if you want to come be part of our journey, please hit that subscribe button, and we hope to see you on the next video. Take care.